Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Chantel and I'm back today with a belated bi-weekly, I suppose this would be a tri-weekly wrap-up, but I'm still just gonna call it my bi-weekly wrap-up. Apologies for being gone. Got busy, ran out of gumption, didn't have time, the usual excuses. I'm back. And I have a number of books to talk about, so I think I should really probably dive into that. I have finished 5 books since the last time I did one of these, and I'm also in the process of reading a few more, so I do have a fair amount to talk about, so I think I should probably just get started. First and foremost, I purchased and read What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher because it was spooky month, and I bought this on a whim at Barnes & Noble with the $5 coupon or whatever, and I read it because it's short and I wanted something spooky, and I also really enjoy The Fall of the House of Usher, which is the story that this little novella is based on, the Edgar Allan Poe short story. And I really liked this book. It was a lot of fun. I don't know that I want to say a whole lot about it because I feel like pretty much everybody has read it. I feel like I'm kind of the last person to finally get to this book. And B, I think if you haven't read it and you're thinking about reading it, I don't want to say much because it's so short. I don't want to say anything that's going to ruin it except to say what everybody else has said, which is that it's a retelling of The Fall of the House of Usher, and it's also really good. So I don't want to really say much more than that, except that the cover is... you're gonna get that. You're gonna get some of that. And it's really creepy and good. So yeah, that's What Moves the Dead by T. Kingfisher. Highly recommend. Once again, T. Kingfisher is an author that just does not miss for me. Absolutely never misses. Had a great time with this. The next book I want to talk about is the one that I'm sure everybody has been very excited to see me finally finish, and that is Maria Theresa, the Habsburg Empress in Her Time by Barbara Stolberg-Rillinger. So yeah, this doorstopper. I finally finished it. It only took me like 2.5 months to get through it. And yeah, it's a lot on the sliding scale of historical nonfiction, where one end of the scale is sort of pop history, which is, tends to be very more in the mode of, telling a story, and the other end of the scale, which is a very dry, scholarly history book, which is, doing a deep examination of something. This is definitely much more on the end of the scholarly side of things. And so this probably has limited appeal outside of me and, people who actually study the Habsburgs for a living, but I enjoyed it. I thought the middle part was less interesting to me, I think because she spends a lot of time talking about the wars, and I'm not so much interested in the military history of stuff and the divvying up of the way that borders were changing and things like that in the 18th century is less interesting to me than sexual and cultural politics and family relationships and things like that. So yeah, the parts of it that I was most interested in were the parts of it that were about her marriage and her relationships with her kids, and also her social and cultural policies and the religious stuff. So that stuff was all really good. I especially liked her examination of Maria Theresa's relationship with her son, Joseph, her son and heir, the co-regency that happened at the end of her life after her husband died, in which she was basically in a situation where she was refusing to give up her own power to her son, but she also couldn't just cut him out entirely, being aware that, he was her son and heir, and was, after her husband's death, he did become the Holy Roman Emperor. And so she put herself in a kind of bind with her son that she was never able to extricate herself from it. It kind of destroyed her relationship with her son. And then as soon as she died, her son instigated a lot of reforms, some of which she had been pushing for and he had put a stop to, but it became such a point of contention with them that it started to feel like, you know, he was opposing her just for the sake of opposing her, even if on principle they would have agreed on things. I also really enjoyed her discussion of the ways in which Maria Theresa was interacting with the Enlightenment culture of the 18th century. She complicates the accepted narratives about Maria Theresa and her relationship with that. In some ways, she was following some Enlightenment ideals, and in other ways, she very much was not. And she was a very conservative force in some ways. And she does a good job of putting some nuance back in there and helping the reader understand why Maria Theresa sometimes held seemingly very contradictory views. So it was a really interesting read. I enjoyed it. I'm glad I read it. And I'm also glad to be done with it because boy, is it big. And I was ready to move on to some other things. So yeah, that was the Maria Theresa biography, finally. I also did read Fantastes by George MacDonald, starting off my personal project of reading some classic fantasy literature to sort of look at the fantasy genre and the way that it develops over time, and also as a kind of Victober reading, because this was published in the 1850s, I think. This was an interesting read. Would I say that I liked it? There were bits of it that I liked. It's very allegorical. I think that's the problem I have with it. It's pretty strongly allegorical, and I, as a contemporary reader, am not a fan of allegory. I'm not a fan of straight allegory. And so I had some trouble with it on those lines. It's certainly very well written, and it was not difficult for me to read or to get through. Yeah, it was just, I think, way too allegorical for my taste. That having been said, I'm glad I read it because I can definitely see where, you know, again, this isn't so much about, am I going to enjoy these books, as it is about, I'm attempting to glean from my reading of these books a greater understanding and a greater depth of understanding of the development of the modern fantasy genre. And this is one of the earliest steps in that. And so I am excited to see where it goes. And I'll probably be starting to read the fantasy and introduction book to go along with it to help further my understanding and to work through this project. But yeah, I'm glad I read it. Was it like the best thing I've ever read? No, but it was certainly an interesting read, an interesting time. So that is Fantastes by George MacDonald. The next book that I read was The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. I read Circe earlier this year and really, really loved it. And so I decided to read The Song of Achilles because why not? This was, I would say, I did not like this as much as Circe. I think maybe it's because I am just so familiar with the story being told in this book that to me it didn't feel like it was doing anything super new or interesting with it. It definitely gives us a lot. You know, it definitely gives us a nice take on Achilles and Patroclus. And it's beautifully written in some parts. The ending definitely got me. I liked it. I didn't like it as much as Circe. I felt like Circe was more I think it's just more my jam, honestly. Circe is much more of a female empowerment kind of story, and this is not, right? This doesn't do anything particularly interesting with any of its female characters. It's really the Achilles and Patroclus show, which is fine for what it is. So, like, I didn't dislike it. It's good. I just was not as impressed with it as compared to Circe. So yeah, that's Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Again, glad I read it. Glad I have it. It was a good time. And then finally, I was lucky enough to get a very thematically relevant hold come in by the end of the month, and that is The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. So this is a hold that I had from my library, and it came in just in the nick of time, and I was able to read it like the week of Halloween. This was a super fun book. If you're not familiar, this is a historical horror set in the 18th century in Mexico. And yeah, our heroine, Alba Diaz, goes to a silver mine with her family. The mine is, she was found there as a baby and adopted by her parents. And so this is the first time she's been back there since she was an infant. And when they get back there, they're escaping a plague in the city. And when they get there, strange things start to happen, and she starts to feel really weird, and she starts to sleepwalk, and she starts to discover that she's been going places and doing things without her own knowledge while she sleeps. And so it's a classic kind of possession story in some ways. It's also very fresh and very contemporary in that it deals really head on with issues of bodily autonomy and what does it mean to consent? What does it mean to make a choice when you are very constrained in the kinds of choices that you can make by the society that you live in? And there is a romance element to it as well. There are things about the ending that I really liked, and there are things about the ending that I thought were a little bit rote and by the numbers. But overall, I quite enjoyed this book and had a good time. I think it's very well written, and I will definitely, this is the first Isabel Cañas book that I have read. I will definitely be picking up her others. I have been interested in reading her others, but I will definitely have to pick them up now because I did enjoy this quite a bit. So yeah, that's The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas. And then I did also read Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll, another on my sort of fantasy genre project list, and also a Victober pick. This was fun. I enjoyed it. I love the beautiful illustrations in this edition that I was able to pick up from my local used bookstore, and I'll be reading through the Looking Glass here very soon as well. I stopped after I finished the first one, but I'll definitely finish this bind up of the two pretty soon. But yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I think it's really cute, very Victorian, which is exactly what I expected. I don't know that there's a whole lot else for me to say about this. Alice's Adventures in Wonderland does not have a hold on my nostalgia brain the way that some other stories do, because I've never been like a huge fan of this, but it's definitely fun and I liked it. So that's Alice's Adventures in Wonderland by Lewis Carroll. And I have a couple of current reads as well. I have been rereading Dracula by Bram Stoker with my best friend. We're nearly done with it. We weren't quite able to get finished before Halloween. We'll be finishing it up probably in the next couple of days. But yeah, personally, I really love Dracula. I think this is a really fun book. It's a classic potboiler. It does get a little repetitive in the middle. I think that's deliberate on Bram Stoker's part. It's very, he's trying to be very procedural, I think. And he's trying to set this up as, on the one hand, you have the ancient evil, the supernatural aspects of the vampires. And on the other hand, you have our protagonists who are very much modern people in the modern world, and they're using modern technology and modern scientific techniques to fight this supernatural evil, right? I think that's really the point, is that contrast between the two things, and that's, I think, where the proceduralness and the occasionally somewhat tedious repetitiveness arises in the middle of this book. But overall, this is a really fun book. I really like the characters. I think it's just a good time. Van Helsing is so fun. Mina and Jonathan are so cute. Everybody's just great. Dracula's a great villain. It's just a really fun book. It's one of my favorites, and I'm enjoying my reread of this immensely. And then the other book that I'm reading right now that I just started, another library pickup, I grabbed Red City by Marie Lu. This is a new release. I believe Marie Lu is primarily a YA author, and this is her first adult novel. It's a sort of contemporary-ish urban fantasy set in an alternate Los Angeles, where these groups of people, these alchemical guilds, sort of run things. They're basically criminal cartels, and it's a sort of star-crossed lovers story. I think our two main characters, Ari and Sam, are friends from childhood who end up being members of two rival alchemical guild factions, and so they end up on sort of opposite sides of this escalating situation between the two. That's my understanding. I'm less than 100 pages in, so that's basically what I've gleaned from what I've read so far and from the summary of the book. I am enjoying it so far. It is in present tense. I'm not super bothered by the present tense so far in this book. I don't know why, but it's not bothering me as much as it normally would. So I'm fine with it so far. We'll see how we go. As I said, I'm only like maybe 65 pages in so far, so that might change. But right now, so far, it's good. I'm enjoying the way that the world is being built out as we go. I'm enjoying the characters so far. I think they're interesting enough that they have my attention. They have my investment. So I'm looking forward to reading the rest of this. So yeah, that's Red City by Marie Lu. I'll definitely be, when I next check in with you, I'll let you know what I thought. But so far, so good. Goodness, that's books. That's a lot of books. I did also pick up a couple of DVDs. The Criterion folks did have a flash sale the other week where they had 50% off for like 24 hours. So I snapped up a couple of Blu-rays. I went with a feline theme this time because, I don't know, I felt like it. So I picked up Flow. I really enjoyed this. This is one of my favorite films that I watched last year. It's beautiful and sad and heartbreaking and amazing, and I loved it. And then I picked up the classic horror film Cat People, directed by Jacques Tourneur. If you want me to talk more about this film, you can watch my video of 20 great black and white films, because I mention it there. This is a really fun 1940s horror film about a cursed lady who turns into a cat. It's great. So yeah, that's some purchases. I haven't really bought any books. I think I'm done buying books for a little while at least. But yeah, that's what I got. That's my check-in. Let me know in the comments below what you've been reading lately. Did you have any good spooky reads in October? I definitely did have some good spooky reads in October. Always love reading the spooky stuff in October. What about Victober? Did you do any great Victorian reads in October? Let me know that as well. If you like this video, leave a like. Subscribe if you want to see some more. And we'll see you in the next one. Bye.